Have you
Yes,
found that to be the case for most? Or like you go, you study, you spend your 4 years trying to get a degree, and then people come to realize, wait a minute, all this time I was being told I would actually get this degree, and then that would lead me to a job. But it turns out, the degree was really just a check mark as part of getting the actual job. So what was your experience like transitioning into security? Let's
That's
start
a
with
great
that.
question. So so fresh out of high school, I was a medical record specialist. So my job was scanning physical medical records and converting them into a digital medical records. And the reason why we were doing that was so patients can have access to medical records through a web application, right? And another reason why we did that is because of to be compliant with HIPAA compliance.
Yes.
And HIPAA compliance is pretty big in the medical industry. So I did that for 4 years while I was an undergrad. And my friend on my fourth year, my senior year of college, he recommended that, hey, you should get this internship at San Diego State. And I worked as an intern for a year for my senior year at San Diego State, doing basic IT tasks, re-imaging computers, moving desktops, setting up computers for
like a help desk
admin
technician.
Yeah, kind of like a help desk technician. Did a little bit of vulnerability scanning, and then it wasn't until one of my friends, he told me how much he was making in cyber. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to make that much money. So, and also after doing my own research as well, realizing that the cybersecurity industry is still growing at a significant rate. It's still pretty, in my opinion, relatively relatively early. I mean, it's been around, but it's like there's so much room for growth in the cybersecurity industry. There's folks from all different disciplines, pivoting into this industry. From your cyber psychologist, your pen tester, to your cyber compliance guy.
Cyber psychologist.
I've never heard of that one. There are folks titled cyber psychologists who study how the psychology behind why hackers do what they do, why criminals behave the way cyber criminals behave the way that they behave.
Interesting. Wow, how cool. Wow.
Yeah, so the industry is pretty big, but for me, my biggest challenge getting into a cyberspace, I'd say, was just being, I guess, naive and ignorant.
How so?
I didn't realize how, because it took me from my senior year, like my fourth year, all of my fifth year as an undergrad, right? I graduated in 5 years. So my fifth year, it took 8 to 9 months of my fifth year. So it wasn't until spring semester where I was about to graduate where I landed a role. So I was applying from the summer from my fourth year to my fifth year, all the way to the end of my collegiate tenure. So my biggest mistake was I just didn't know how much work it required to land a role within tech, because I was under the presumption, well, if I have a degree, I'll easily be able to apply for a job and get the job, and most of us, younger folks who, we have this idea where if we just get the degree, we do the internship, automatically, yes, we're going to get the job. But that wasn't the case for me, and I'm sure.
Have you found that to be the case for most? Where like you go, you study, you spend your 4 years trying to get a degree, and then people come to realize, wait a minute, all this time I was being told I would actually get this degree, and then that would lead me to a job. But it turns out, the degree was really just a check mark as part of getting the actual job. Have you found that to be the case with most people?
Oh, that's most definitely. Yeah. That's definitely the case. Where I've had I won't say plenty, but I've had people reach out to me literally a week before graduation saying, hey, Abdi, I need help finding a job. And my thing is like, hey, you do realize that the time for you to apply for jobs is like your junior year or even before that. You got to think long term, right? Like if you're in college, you got to understand. I'm not saying your degree is not valuable, especially those of us who are in the STEM fields. I'm not saying your degree isn't valuable, but you have to understand that it's a competitive market, and a degree is just not going to guarantee you employment. I like to think of this as a game of probabilities, right? So you get the degree, that increases your probability of employment, right? You know, you have your home lab projects. That increases your probability of employment. You're networking on social media sites like LinkedIn, and you're going to network events offered through your respective college campus. See, now, you know, you're getting out there. You have the project experience, and you know, you have a degree. You're pretty competitive at that point. You know, within your space, because most of us who are during undergrad, we're not doing this thing, right? We're not going to enough networking events, you know, where before we're graduating, right? Before the year we're graduating, we're not establishing relationships with, you know, recruiters early on. Because a lot, you know, it's crazy because there are recruiters that come on campus, you know, and they're there to get students, you know, build relationships with students and offer internships. And also, you know, there are organizations on campus, on college campuses, that have conferences and workshops throughout the year where students can go to, and they can build relationships with prospective employers, you know, whether that be the Lockheed Martins, the Boeing, the Amazon, the Microsoft, whatever, right? So it's the biggest challenge for me was understanding, you know, hey, what I would have told the younger Abby, like, hey, the time for you to look for roles, you know, is not when the year you're about to graduate. It's way before that. It's you got to be able to set yourself up for the next play in a timely manner.